Welcome to GESARA for Dummies. It is May 31, 2025. Let's look at today's news from Professor William Liebenberg, prepared by Martin Stein. Please like, share and subscribe. Join our Telegram group in the comments below. Thank you. Let's go. Iraq and Dinar RV. Iraq's debt exceeds $130 billion. Iraq's public debt has surpassed $130 billion, as the government faces a widening fiscal deficit, and delays in finalizing the 2025 federal budget, a lawmaker cautioned on Thursday. Member of Parliament, Riyad al-Maliki, stated that the Ministry of Finance has yet to prepare budget schedules, due to the central bank's refusal to authorize further borrowing. Revenues can't even cover salaries, and the fiscal gap is unprecedented, al-Maliki noted after a meeting with Finance Minister Taif Sami. He criticized the government's recent endorsement of the second phase of the Beautiful Baghdad Beautification Project, estimated at $122 million, arguing that funds should instead address contractor arrears and suspended infrastructure works. The government is spending billions on cosmetic ventures, while essential infrastructure remains stalled and funded through borrowing, he remarked. This mirrors the 2016 liquidity crisis, and history risks repeating itself. The lawmaker further accused the administration of confiscating employee benefit allocations, delaying promotions and raises, and liquidating public assets, such as residential properties in Baghdad's fortified green zone, to cover operating expenses. Parliament's silence is enabling poor governance, and deepening the burden on Iraq's economy, al-Maliki concluded. The financial crisis in Iraq is real. So, bump up global fiat money debt. Change the currency system. Leave cabal monetary system. Cabal system left with debt. Gold, gold, gold. If you can't see the bigger picture for all to happen simultaneously, then I truly feel sorry for you. Go and study the word precipice, please. Q Military Intelligence Delta Post of June 4, post number 4407. Important to understand. Only at the precipice, moment of destruction, will people find the will to change. How many people are awake and ready? How many people are still asleep? A ferocious storm is coming, sit tight. The GESARA Law. President Trump is correct about the white Afrikaners genocide in South Africa. Let's watch.
Where the genocidal cycle really begins is dehumanization. We see that kind of dehumanization right here in South Africa right now, and it's in the very preamble to the beginning of the ANC's documents, in which it refers to all whites as, quote, settlers. Now, if you refer to everybody in a class as a settler, you're also saying this person doesn't belong here. You're saying it's the equivalent of what the Turks did to the Armenians. They said these people are really, not Turks, and therefore they don't belong in Anatolia. It's the same thing that the Germans did to the Jews. That the Jews were somehow interlopers in German society and should be eliminated. Whenever you have that kind of dehumanization, and of course we know that the Tutsis were treated in the same way in Rwanda, you have the beginning of that downward spiral into genocide. The fourth stage is where you actually have organization, in which the people who are going to carry out the killings or the expulsions and so forth are organized to do so, are trained to do so, and in which they're often armed, in which they're trained ideologically and so forth. You find there the Interahamwe in Rwanda, or the SS in Germany, and so forth. In this country, you have several groups who I believe are in that category. Under Julius Malema and the Youth League, I believe that you had a group that was organizing to carry out this very kind of, what can you say, forced displacement of the white population. And he was calling for it openly. And now we have the deputy president who is, about to be sued, in fact, by TAU, Ronald Lamola, who's calling for war. Now, this is the kind of talk that, of course, it's not only pre-genocidal, but it's also, it comes before crimes against humanity. So what I've been seeing, not just among people who, of course, were strong defenders of apartheid, and of course, I was here during apartheid, and so I saw apartheid in action. I was very involved, in fact, in the anti-apartheid movement. And so for me, this is really coming to grips with another reality that perhaps I didn't fully understand. We, I think, as human beings, need to first of all remember that we're all human, and that is the key fact about us. And so anytime you make these racial distinctions, you are dividing up the unity of the human race. Some people say that the big mistake people make about race is to think there's more than one. We are really all human first. And whenever I fill out forms, even in the United States, and we've still got these forms in the United States, where they ask you, what is your race? I just say, human. I remember that was also true here in South Africa, and of course they used to really laugh at me when I would cross the border from Swaziland into South Africa, because that's what I did then too. I would just say human. But it is my belief, I think that it is our ultimate characteristic in the sight of God. And I believe that is really what we need to remember always. The next stage is polarization, in which you try to portray the people who are not with you as somehow being against you, as being your enemies, in which you portray the moderates, for example, the Democratic Alliance or other people like that, as somehow being also the enemies. That is where we have classified South Africa right now as a polarized society, one that is still racially polarized. Yesterday I was really struck that at a conference of the F.W. de Klerk Foundation, in which the F.W. de Klerk Foundation had invited representatives of the ANC to attend, not one person from the ANC attended. Now that is amazing. To have a Nobel Peace Prize winner invite and then have no one attend, it's just astonishing to me. And I saw the polarization, in other words, here in very real terms. What worries me the most is the next stage, because the next stage is the planning. It's the preparation. It's the preparation for how to carry out killings. It's the preparation for how to carry out forced displacement, for how to drive out the people that you don't want in your country. And that is what we are worried is happening now. We are worried that there are organized groups that are in fact doing that planning. We raised South Africa from stage 5 to stage 6 when Julius Malema began to go around singing the Shoot the Boer song again. It became clear to us that the Youth League was in fact this kind of an organization. It was planning this kind of genocidal massacre and also forced displacement of whites from South Africa. And so we raised it to 6. When Julius Malema was then, thanks to the TAU and others, tried for hate speech and was convicted and was in fact enjoined by the judge from ever singing that song again, we said, oh, there was a great sense of relief from some of us that maybe South Africa was pulling back. But then the president himself started singing this song. Well, this really worries us now. And one thing that I have learned on this trip is just how strong the Communist Party still is in the African National Congress, COSATU, the Youth League, and other parts of this system. The farm murders, we have become convinced, are not accidental. We don't know exactly who is planning them yet, but what we are calling for is an international investigation that will try to determine who it is who is planning these murders, because we do not believe them to be accidents. We do not believe them to be common robberies. It's very clear they're not, because so often people, like in this Viana case, for instance, nothing was stolen. They were just murdered. And there's so many other cases like that. Especially, they were hate crimes, because the people's bodies were literally, they were desecrated. They were chopped up. They were, disemboweled. The people were left with symbols on them that were indicating very clearly that this was a hate crime. An open Afrikaner Bible, for example, on the body. I mean, things of this sort are what I have seen before in other genocides. This is what has happened in Burundi. It's what happened in Rwanda. It's happened in many other places in the world. So those who would be deniers and who would try to ignore the warning signs in this country, I think are ignoring the facts. Now, I will be going to the U.S. Embassy this afternoon to meet with the Minister Counselor for Economic Affairs. The Minister Counselor is above the ambassador in our rank system in our foreign service. And we will be talking about these things that I have found. We'll also be talking about the so-called green paper, which, in my opinion, as a constitutional lawyer, would essentially create a fourth branch of government. This valuer general would take away so much power from the judiciary to determine the fair value of land and other property that it would become like a fourth branch of government. In fact, one that would be controlled by the executive branch. It would totally upset the constitutional balance of powers that were set forth in the original South African Constitution. So whatever system of land tenure is adopted in South Africa, the communists in the long run have in mind to take away all private property. That should never be forgotten. Every communist country I have lived in, and I lived in Cambodia, I've lived in other countries that were communist. I helped the Ukrainian independence overthrow the communist system in the Ukraine. But every place you go where communists have taken over, they take away private ownership. Because private ownership gives people the power, the economic power, to oppose their government. Once you've taken that away, there is no basis on which you can have the economic power to oppose the government. So I can't come here, have learned a good deal, especially from you and from other people who have worked with the TAU and with Afrikaners who have struggled for such a long time in this country, that this is a country in danger, and I will continue to believe it is. We won't take it off of our radar screen. We are going to, in fact, try to come back and try to do a good study of South Africa, one that will be maybe finally listened to in the world. I happen to know a lot of people by this time. I'm 66 years old, and when you're that old, you actually get to know a few people. And so the people on top of our Atrocities Prevention Board, for instance, in the United States, Adama Dieng, who's now going to be the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide to the UN Secretary General, is a very old friend of mine. People like that are the people I will be contacting.
There is a colossal storm brewing. Project Odin gives you some idea what is coming. BRICS GESARA Nations Alliance. Peter Schiff, China is silently dumping the dollar. A US dollar crisis is coming soon. China is gradually weaning themselves off of the dollar. That's why, if you look at their holdings of US treasuries, they've actually gone down a bit over the years. If you look at all the new treasuries we've issued over the years, the fact that the Chinese haven't bought any of them is a big deal, because they used to be a main buyer of these assets. Instead of buying more treasuries, they've bought more gold. So if you look at US dollar debt as a percentage of all the reserves the Chinese own, treasuries are a much smaller percentage of their total reserves than they once were, especially if you consider the appreciation of gold. I would guess the reason they're not moving more dramatically is because they probably don't want to cause a crash, the dollar to implode, the treasury market to implode, because they are trying to sell and want to get a decent price. So I think they're happy to slowly bleed it off to try to get that good price. Let's swatch.
You were talking about why the policies of the Biden administration have damaged the faith in the dollar. I suppose to that I should ask you why it's been so slow. I mean, some could criticize the BRICS agreements about not acting faster in a time when the United States was trying to sanction so much of the world. Why does it take so long for China to unwind its bond investments? And why does it take so long for other countries to unwind it? And is that because actually the dollar is still pretty useful, even in the short to medium term?
Yeah, I mean, the dollar is still being used to settle a lot of global transactions. So I'm sure the Chinese are using the dollar, but they are gradually weaning themselves off of the dollar. That's why, if you look at their holdings of U.S. Treasuries, they've actually gone down a bit over the years.
But not much.
Despite the fact that we've issued a tremendous...
Not that much, despite the rhetoric.
Yeah, but... Right. But if you look at all the new treasuries that we've issued over the years, the fact that the Chinese haven't bought any of them is a big deal, because they used to be a main buyer of these assets. And so instead of buying more treasuries, they've bought more gold. And who knows what else. So if you look at U.S. dollar debt as a percentage of all the reserves that the Chinese own, the treasuries are a much smaller percentage of their total reserves than they once were, especially if you consider the appreciation of gold, right? So obviously they're buying gold, and the gold that they own is a lot more valuable than it was. But I would guess that the reason that they're not moving more dramatically is because they probably don't want to cause a crash, like the dollar to implode, the treasury market to implode, because they are trying to sell. And so they obviously want to get a decent price. So I think they're happy to slowly bleed it off to try to get a good price. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, that they have really shortened the maturity of their treasury portfolio. So the Chinese are not holding on to a lot of long-term treasuries that they actually have to sell. They have a lot more short-term treasuries that they could just let mature and get their money back, get their dollars. So they don't have to worry about the impact on the treasury market. They just have to worry about the impact on the dollar, right? Because if they try to dump too many dollars at once, the dollar could go down. And especially if a lot of other countries see that and they want to get out. I mean, there could be a run on the dollar. If all the holders decide that they want to get out, they don't want to be the last one holding the dollar, and so it becomes a rush. And we could be in a U.S. dollar crisis relatively soon anyway. I mean, I think the dollar and treasuries are going to keep falling. Even if the Fed cuts rates, I think long-term rates are going to rise because inflation is going to really run out of control, especially as the dollar accelerates its decline. So I think we're heading for a real crisis in the U.S. And I think countries that are smart would be trying to get ahead of that by, selling whatever they can as quietly as they can out of U.S. dollars and any U.S. dollar denominated debt.
VivoPower raises $121 million to launch XRP Treasury strategy with Saudi royal backing. The Nasdaq-listed energy firm aims to be the first public company with XRP focus, with former State Bank of India, Ripple Asian executive joining as chairman of the advisory board. Aeon partners with Stellar to expand Web3 mobile payments across Southeast Asia and beyond. XRP are for institutions, Stellar XLM is for individuals. It is another Trojan horse, guaranteed. Payment systems. The SEC announced it will be hosting its final Crypto Roundtable to discuss crypto DeFi on June 9. Basel III makes it official, gold is money again. As of July 1, 2025, gold will officially be classified as a Tier 1, high-quality liquid asset, HQLA, under the Basel III banking regulations. That means U.S. banks can count physical gold, at 100% of its market value, toward their core capital reserves. No longer will it be marked down by 50% as a Tier 3 asset, as it was under the old rules. This is a seismic shift in how regulators perceive gold, and it's a long overdue recognition of what many of us have known, for decades: gold is money. And it's the kind of money you want to own, when the world is on fire. Basel III regulations has the potential to create changes in currency values, particularly for global currencies and gold, but the impact on XRP is more speculative, till it changed to gold. Specifically, the reclassification of gold as a Tier 1 asset, under Basel III, could increase demand for physical gold, potentially driving up its price, and indirectly impacting fiat currencies. The idea that XRP could be backed by gold reserves, or that the U.S. Treasury could acquire Ripple, and issue a gold-backed XRP, is not so speculative. If such a scenario were to occur, it could significantly impact XRP's value, and potentially make it a dominant global currency. Currency wars. The new monetary system is weeding out what is unnecessary and dark. Like it or not, the role of the dollar is in the midst of a drastic change. The fiat dollar, as we know it, is gone. It is going through a liquidation process. Yes, the dollar is going through a liquidation process. Before long, you may hear the dollar being referred to as a unit of account. The banking system is used to this terminology already. BRICS will introduce the world to the unit system, connected to gold. The fiat system is giving way to a digital asset-based trading system. The value of all assets going forward are in transition, and XRP is the bridge. An ISO 20022 compliant XRP gold is the final solution. But wait, there is more. Let's watch these 4 short videos. 1. One of the biggest financial storms in our history is brewing.
One of the biggest financial storms in our history is brewing right now, and your mortgage could be at the center of it. If you're on a variable rate, pay close attention, because this could be affecting you the most. Our top Canadian banks are bracing for a mortgage renewal cliff. So what does this mean for you? Banks have recently set aside $4.3 billion for bad loans. That's 11 times more than just 2 years ago. Are they seeing something that we're not? Over half of all mortgage holders are on fixed rates, and 76% of those are coming up for renewal in 2026. So what happens when that renewal comes along? Picture this. You bought a home in 2019 at 2.8% interest. Now you're renewing at 5.5%. That's an extra $700 a month on a $500,000 mortgage. Here's what most people don't know. Whoever's on a variable rate mortgage with fixed payments, those payments are now almost 100% interest only. And once his payment comes up for renewal, RBC says payments can increase by up to 86%. This year, $186 billion in mortgages are up for renewal. Next year is $315 billion. These soaring payments will ripple across our economy, forcing Canadians to cut back on all other spending. The Bank of Canada holds a key, but they warned us. Rates will drop slowly and we'll never see pandemic levels again. So how do you think the mortgage crisis will impact the market? Drop your thoughts below.
2. President Nayib Bukele, of El Salvador. Printing money out of thin air.
The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. Government is financed by Treasury bonds, paper. And who buys the Treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The Treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Well, so if the government can print the limited amounts of money out of thin air, why did they collect taxes? The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not.
Three. Stay the course with XRP.
This day on your calendar, March 20th, 2025, ISO 2200 is going live. What that means is all banks worldwide have to integrate this system in which cryptos run on, and XRP has been the first to integrate it. So that means that all transactions will have to go through some banking system. What better banking system than XRP? The Ripple CEO has stated that XRP has been built to sustain billions of users at a price of $10,000. Trump is buying XRP with his son. This was reported by an analyst. There are 5.75 million XRP holders compared to October, which was 5.35 million. The whales are holding. The people that are selling are making small amounts compared to the elites that are staying in place because they know the play is to capitalize on global banking systems like SWIFT that handle 4 quadrillion.
4. XRP is part of Q military intelligence.
Cannot make this stuff up. Hidden Road, located on 589 Fifth Avenue in New York City. 589. Yeah, 589. The company that Ripple purchased for $1.25 billion, they offer all of these services, OTC on brokerage account for foreign exchange, precious metals. Those that don't realize, Ripple, XRP, this whole total global financial system, the lore surrounding around 589 goes so deep. The number 589 originated in 2018 from a cryptic prediction by a bearable guy 123 that XRP's price will reach 589. Despite not materializing yet, 589 evolved into a cultural statement within the XRP community, symbolizing shared bullishness and belief in XRP's potential to become the world bridge currency and crypto's top coin by market cap. On 9/17/2012, 80 billion XRP was gifted to the company Ripple. When we condense that date, we get the date 985, 589 in reverse. Ripple now follows 985 people, while its CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, followed 589 people. Could this be the true origins of 589? Learn more over at fuzzyxrp.com/learn. Today, on June 30th, 2025, Mr. Ripple 985 changed its banner. Can you believe that? Ripple is trying to steal the Fuzzy Bear's limelight, yo. Look, we got 589 on the floor price today. If we take a look at the time on the clock, we get 9:58. That time is up, and they warned us about this. 1984. The book talks about a dystopian future where truth is lie, surveillance is constant, and thoughts are crimes. George Orwell's 1984 exposes a world ruled by fear, control, and manipulation, where Big Brother decides what's real. Unless we reclaim our sovereignty over money, truth, and thought, utilizing blockchain technology to take back what is rightfully ours. In a decentralized world, community is everything. Look, I know, The tears are coming out right now. Y'all faded fuzzy. What happens on the ledger stays on the ledger. And with today being the first day of XRP Las Vegas 2025, in this image we have, the whole entire Ripple team, including Fuzzy Bear, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. Sounds very sus to me. But not really, because if you learn about the lore and you know that Elon Musk's favorite meme is a bear, with some speculating that he is referring to Bearable Guy 123. Because we've been told to wait for the signal. I don't know what the signal could be, but today Elon Musk gave a press conference with Donald Trump from the White House wearing the Doge Fodder t-shirt. No, they just can't tell you outright 589 that Ripple is part of this whole entire new global financial system. They put everything in plain sight. We just have to be able to do our own research. Because in the background, all along, the hidden road was always going to come full circle. As the one who has the key can use it to reset the system. While everybody is feeling extra fuzzy, Fuzzy Bear became the Trojan horse within the Trojan horse. Ooh, those tears are collecting, yo! Hey, look, it's okay. I faded fuzzy too. Didn't even get in until $3.5 million market cap. I know people that got in it when it launched. But this is why it's so important to know what you hold. Let's go.
That sums up your Saturday news. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.